Okay, good evening everybody. Welcome here to the launch of the new Battle Action series here at Enniskillen Comic Fest. Someone claps, thank you. Thank you. Now, Battle Action is, as you well know, so why am I telling you? It's a revival of the comic that ran from 1975 to 1988. That was originally Battle Picture Weekly, and then it was Battle Picture Weekly and Valiant, and then it was Battle Action, and then just Battle again, I think, and then Action Force. Remember Action Force? And then Storm Force at the end. And the new revival is Battle Action because it's a monthly comic and it wouldn't do to call it Battle Picture Weekly Monthly. So here we are with Battle Action, and it's an anthology. Oh, you don't get many anthologies these days, do you, lads? No. Yeah. So in the very first issue, we have John Wagner, who is one of the creators of Battle Action, or Battle Picture Weekly back in the early days.
John Wagner.
And
quiet, please.
So John is returning to HMS Nightshade, which he wrote many moons ago. And we also have PJ Holden, who won't be showing up until issue 4, is it?
Yeah.
4 or 5?
Late as ever.
It's ages away.
PJ Holden!
Yeah. And to my immediate right, Mr. Dan Cornwell, who's you're in issue 1, aren't you?
I am.
You are in issue 1, and it's awesome, isn't it?
I would say so.
Dan Cornwell, everybody!
More!
Yeah! So why Battle? Why are we coming back to this? Why does everybody love this comic so much, even though everybody stopped buying it in the 80s? Why did that happen? PJ, what are your feelings on this? I'm asking you first because I know you're gregarious.
I'm desperate to talk.
You're right. Go
Why
for
Battle?
it.
Because they asked me and I like being paid to work. So
I love it. Yeah. Well, they pay.
Oh, well.
Well, right in this one then.
Yeah.
And are you enjoying it?
Yeah,
Because you're working on Death Squad.
Death Squad.
With Rob Williams.
With Rob
Who will be
Williams.
appearing in our later episode.
Hello,
Hello,
Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah, Death Squad, a kind of group of bad guy Nazis. I don't know if you've ever believed such a thing would happen. These are the bad guy Nazis.
They the baddies?
Yeah, they're the bad
And
guys.
did you read Death Squad when you were back in the day? Did you recall it?
I would have been old enough to read Battle. I would have read Battle Action. My memories are very hazy because I was 7 or 8 or 9 or so, or 13 or whatever age it was.
Yeah.
So I don't have strong. I've strong because there was Battle and there was Warlord and there was Commando, and they all kind of merge into one in my head as one kind of vast war because it was the war. So, and when I was a kid, I thought the war was still happening and that I could join up and fight against the Nazi horde. So,
well, arguably all the war comics are essentially in the same universe.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, it's the first multiverse kind of thing. They asked me to draw some Battle, and I said yes. And I did. We did Battle. This is the second series, so it's not strictly speaking. It hasn't been published since 1980.
No, we did a one-off special last year, which if many people might recall, we actually did a feature on this very program last year, which was an awesome issue. But this time around, we have last time was all written by Garth. And this time around, Garth has graciously allowed other writers, including the great John Wagner, to get involved. John, what's it like going back to this after all this time?
It's kind of weird, to be honest. It was interesting. It was quite hard getting back into it, but it was lovely to do.
Yeah, will you do more if you're asked again?
Yeah, depending on what it is.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, do you have any favourites that you'd want to do, but you weren't able to do them because
Well, I'd love
Garth
to do
took
a
them all?
Darkies mob, but I'm told it's a bit too near the knuckle.
Yeah.
Well, I'll cut the knuckle. So yeah, I'd do a Darkies mob. I don't think I'd do another Nightshade perhaps.
Yeah.
But I'd love to do a Darkies mob because the Japanese really haven't had it bad enough yet.
And what about yourself, Dan? Did you read Battle at Sea? I mean, you were way too
I was
young.
probably too young. I think I must have been 4 or 5. So,
But you're familiar.
but I remember it.
with
I remember it. Yeah. I remember it being in the shops, but I was too young to enjoy war comics.
Yeah.
I was buying the Beano or something like that.
Well, Backstreet Kids,
Yeah, things
Charles
like
War,
that.
it's all the same thing, yeah.
But I do remember it being there, and as I got older, I did buy a couple of issues, but
Yeah.
I was reading more of Eagle and sci-fi at that point,
Yeah.
not war comics.
So
But I
what
did
is-
get a few.
Yeah. So did you enjoy the process? Would you do
Oh,
it
loved
again?
it. I loved it. Yeah, yeah.
And because you did High School by Science Head, obviously.
Well,
with
every
John,
time
so-
I've done a panel with John, well, every time I've only done 2 panels about this, but every time I've asked John about doing another Nightshade, he, maybe we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see, and it's I enjoy doing that kind of stuff anyway.
You should ask him closer to the financial year end.
Yeah.
Usually the best.
The art on Nightshade was lovely. It was really good. And
Yeah.
the cover of Nightshade, of course, was beautiful.
Yeah.
So,
We were pleased
I mean,
with
just
with
for
the work
that,
done.
it would
Yeah.
be worth
Oh
doing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Excellent.
John asked me. He said, I think it was John. Asked me, would you mind if Keith does the cover?
That's your
Yeah.
car going
And
off
of
out
course
there.
I didn't.
Yeah.
We've all seen it. It's a stunning cover. So
Yeah, it's amazing. So if you guys had to choose another character, I mean, if you're familiar enough with Battle, do you want to do Johnny Red? Do you want to do the Sarge? Someone like that?
I'm doing one. The next one I'm doing, I can't say what it is.
We didn't know. Exclusive here on
So
this channel.
I'm doing something that is coming,
Yeah,
and it is another.
Were you not supposed to have said that?
Well, this is great because
Well,
I got into trouble the last time, if you remember. Now he's in trouble, so that's fine.
He told
Fine by
me. He told me. So. And he said it was all right.
I
So it's not-
see. Okay, no, that's fine. Well, you're enjoying it, yeah?
I haven't started it yet.
Oh, right. And do you? It's very different when you're doing a war thing because you can't just make up stuff. With science fiction, you can decide how many wheels a vehicle
I find
has.
it easier.
Yeah.
I find it easier.
Oh, very good.
Well, you got all
you,
the
Pete?
reference there.
Well, Pete, you've done tons of actual true life war type art,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you're used to looking up the
Yeah,
the
but
stats.
it's weird because when you're doing a longer strip, like when you're doing 4-part series or something, you can spend a lot of time digging up references and
Yeah.
stuff and going for it. When you're doing a short 6-page thing, it's like this is a lot of reference for something this short.
Yeah.
So you kind of want to, but then Battle, I kind of think I don't really think Battle isn't a historical document, So there's a little bit of leeway, and that leeway extends to as far as up until Garth sees it, and then that what leeway you had disappears. But it's a little more kind of action adventure focused than it's not a military document,
Yeah,
It's-
well, that's
so,
true.
you know.
And is he a hard taskmaster, young Garth?
Well,
very-
no, as long as you do
he won't
everything-
hear this.
Like, as long as you do absolutely everything that he's asked for in the way that he's asked for it, he's very easy going.
How come
perfectly
you didn't
laid
behave
back.
like that when you were writing my scripts?
Well, I thought there was I could take you in a fight. I don't think
Yeah,
I have a chance with Garth, really.
That's true. And so, John, if we go back to the early days of Battle, did you ever imagine that you'd still be coming back to it after all this time? That it would be such a success?
No, I didn't think I'd be alive.
Oh, and well done on being alive, by the way. We're all very grateful. That's fantastic to see that you've
It's
still
kind
be
of
interested.
weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's great that Battle has been revived like this because it was a really good, solid comic and had some great stories in it. So
Yeah.
the interest in it surprises me a bit, but it's really good to see.
Well, it's informed so many creators today. People of certainly my generation who grew up reading it, though I couldn't always afford it because we were poor. But it was just incredible to see. I mean, there's still
Should have just stole it. I mean, just take it. Don't know what it would have
Yeah,
been.
but I wouldn't have been able to do that and look Judge Dredd in the eye,
That's
now
true,
would I?
that's
But I think how are we doing for time, guys? Do we have any questions, real quick?
11 minutes.
11 minutes left or
That's
gone?
not a question. That's a
that's
statement.
brilliant.
Typical.
Oh, that's good. In that case, we have. Do you have any questions from the audience, or will I bounce into my own? No, no.
John, what was the hardest part of coming back to Nightshade? What was the most difficult thing?
It was finding something different to do
Yeah.
with it. When I looked through I thought there was a lot more mileage in Nightshade, but when I looked through it, I had covered pretty much everything. I could have covered it in a lot more depth if it had more time, but it was finding a new angle on it. But there are always new angles in stories, you just got to look for them.
Nightshade's first mission. Because it wasn't the first mission, was it, at the start of the book?
No, the whole point is that it's And of course, the problem was that Nightshade took from far too much depth at the end. When we see what happens in the whole story is that it's looking back on the ship as it had been.
Yeah.
But Of course, with something like this, there were so many stories and so many different people on board over the years. There's a lot of ground to tread, but you can't risk the problem of, if you can't remember exactly which stories you wrote back in the day, or I certainly can't, then you always risk of repeating yourself. So that's a danger.
But it's all there in a book that I can read. So
That's true.
I know what went
You
on.
can go again, and
Would you say the bully? I forgot the name of the bully in that.
Parsons.
Do you reckon he was the hero of the story?
The thing he did was the most heroic,
Yeah.
but he didn't really have much choice.
No, yeah.
You know, if you're caught in a bad situation, why not go out with a bit of glory?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At
Redeem yourself, yeah.
the time you were writing that, there would have been World War II veterans working around. And
Well,
did they have any say
the
on it? Did
artist,
they
Mike Western, was a World War II veteran.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons his artwork was so strong.
Yeah.
And most of the artists that worked for Battle at the time were veterans. In fact, when we originated Battle, we gave away on issue 2, I think it might have been issue 1, a page of war stickers. And we wanted to give away some SS stripes. And the lawyer, who was also a veteran, he went ballistic. He said, "You're not going to do that, we're not having it." And so we had a big argument in the managing director's office, and luckily he won. So we did not have SS stripes or lightning flashes. It's probably a good thing. But they look good. They look bloody good.
They knew how to design the Nazis. That's the problem.
The Nazis were good at that.
Well, they had Hugo Boss looking after all their clothes. So that was. God, they were so lucky.
Dan, how deep did your research go? Like, what was the depth of research when you were, like?
Well, John asked me, when he asked me to do it, which I obviously accepted. He then suggested I make this model ship.
Yes.
And he said, "Oh, if you make the ship, you could use it as reference."
Yeah.
And then give it to me.
And then, so the fact is, by the time I'd finished the strip, the model wasn't finished. So it was just basically I made John a model. But you've got Google, so there's plenty of reference out there. John sent me a book as well about the North Sea convoys and corvettes and whatnot. But the problem, a lot of it was, the only issue we had with the reference was John chose a colour scheme for Nightshade because it was in black and white originally.
Yeah,
That's right.
And so we had to choose a dazzle camouflage for it.
Yeah, Mike Western didn't actually draw Nightshade with camouflage. Did
No.
he?
So and then we did have some issues with the colour in regards to the planes and back and forth with Garth and Len, trying to get that just right.
It's good that Garth takes such an interest in it, because if you get things wrong on these stories, you get no end of complaints.
from Garth.
History should be much more flexible to the creators. It's not fair. There's this adherence to facts. I mean,
Well, the original battle would have been kind of well researched, but not often as well researched.
Yeah.
So you'd have had kind of weird things, the wrong tanks, the wrong vehicles, the wrong weaponry, but it didn't matter because it would have all been read by 12-year-olds or 10-years-olds. So
Garth actually flies bombing missions. So.
But yeah, you have to be much more precise now, don't you? You do have to do the research
Well,
because of the internet. Anyone can Google what such and such looks like, and then if you've got it wrong, you will find out that you got it wrong.
Yeah.
You've been told. So.
back in the 70s, comics were still in that mode where they were considered to be more or less disposable. You didn't.
Well, they were
collect
ephemera.
them
They
and
were
keep them.
ephemera. They were read and then disposed of. Then it was
Yeah.
the next week.
And there was no
Exactly.
social media.
True, and the people didn't look back so much as they do now. And we keep our collections and we check over them. We look for continuity errors. Or some people seem to spend all their time looking for continuity errors so they can complain, which is nice for them. But yeah, in my day, they were just locked up and not allowed to have crayons even. But so with something like, I mean, obviously Garth knows his stuff better than anybody. If you had to be a bit more flexible, would you do something different? I mean, would you want to?
I would have had a few TIE fighters in there.
I was thinking sea monsters and things like that.
Why not?
Because who's to say that didn't happen? You
You know,
know?
genuinely, I would always like more time to be able to research. to get more things more accurate, because I think the more accurate it is, the more interesting it is. You know, you can include stuff in there that is kind of absolutely fascinating and absolutely true, but it, you know, maybe incidental to the story, like the dazzle camouflage and stuff. Which actually I remember researching for boats and dazzle camouflage, and there's not a lot of color dazzle camouflage, not a lot of color photos of dazzle camouflage. So it was sort of black and white, and so people don't quite know what colors they were. But so if you can get stuff like that right, it's kind of interesting. But it also, you kind of lose yourself in that, and you kind of find out, oh, I've read up all about this dazzle camouflage, but I'm drawing tanks, so that was a mistake. I've fallen deep into a hole here.
I had to I had to go through photographs of the interior, and then
interiors are hard
because
it's
people
hard to get reference.
They know what the mess room looks like and things like that. So I had to sit there and design the rooms and whatnot to make sure it's
like
perfect. And the doors, because the doors, if I hadn't thought about it, I would have done doors on the inside of the ship, but just open like doors. But they don't. They slide in and out, and that would have been obviously noticed straight away by someone.
You're thinking of the Enterprise.
Somehow
you've
and the
got
transporter room.
Yeah, but I do think it's more interesting to get this stuff more accurate, and the more. It's weird because as an artist you're always looking for photos and photo reference, but then when you start reading the stuff you kind of realize that the photos are from one specific moment in time, and then you read the reference, it says, well, this happened up until this point, and then they abandoned that. And there's a great thing about German Zimmerit, which is I can't remember the name of stuff. It's stuff they painted on German tanks that was an anti-mine thing. It was basically, it stopped magnetic mines from attaching, and the Germans did this up to a certain point in World War II and then stopped. And they stopped because they realized the only people with magnetic anti-tank mines were Germans, and so they stopped. But you don't find that stuff out. You know, you see photos of the tanks with it, and then eventually photos of the tanks without it, and there's, you know, that middle period we didn't quite know. So
I remember when I was doing the Nightshade, the pictures I was doing, I'm not sure what they're called, but they had two guns on the wings of the bridge, if you like, and I drew them with twin barrel machine guns, and I think Garth noticed, he said they should be single, and I was like, right, okay, but then John, back and forth emails. John said, well, it doesn't really matter because they would change throughout. You know, 1 week they could have had that, and then the following week they could have had, even like you say, the dazzle camouflage would change quite regular. So I think we got away with it so far.
So it is, so that's what
it's those things that readers are going to see for 2 milliseconds as they turn the page and you're wrecking your head over for like a fortnight.
That's always part of the comic. You can't control the pace at which they turn the pages, but we're kind of we're wrapping up on time. I can see a vague silhouette of Stephen there holding up fingers, but I'm not sure what. It could be anything. So if so we're going. Technically, we might do more. What about other, I'm not going to say forgotten, abandoned British comics, characters who don't show up? Do we want to do something like Adam Paterno, or do you want to go back to Oink? That was a different company, wasn't it? I don't know, it was IPC, was it? But what about going back to other stuff? Would you be interested?
I have a soft spot for Adam Paterno, as you say. There's a character called Wilson, who was like an athletic guy.
I think he's DC Thompson.
Was he DC Thompson? But you know, when you're reading this stuff as a child,
I was thinking about volleyball from Tom Hanks' character. That's what I was mentioning. Wilson.
Wilson was was a guy who lived on the moors and would appear to do. He was 100 years old or something, but he was fit as a young guy, and then he would go off and do marathons. Somehow that would save the day. There was a vague memory of what those stories.
There was one of those tornadoes.
I loved superhero stories in British comics that were kind of, you know, they'd be in a union, or you know, they wouldn't be dressed as superheroes. They'd have some weird superpower and would dress in a suit and beat up kind of people who
Curse Tor Doom and all that. So what about yourself, John? Any characters you'd like to revive? Any characters you want to revive, John?
How long can I keep going?
Well, in that case, I think we'll have. Listen, thank you very much, guys. Our first three guests, Dan, John, and PJ. Thank you. So we have a little recess, and then we have our next group. Good. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome again to episode 2, or part 2 of our Battle Action launch here at Enniskillen Comic Fest. on today, on this evening's panel, we have Paddy Goddard. Whoa! Now, Paddy will be doing Cooley's Gun. No, hang on. Sorry. Nina Petrova.
Yeah.
Sorry, forgive me. Nina Petrova in issue 5.
Yes.
So that's not coming out until September. So total spoiler there. And in the same issue, I'm going to skip Staz for a second. In the same issue, Hellman of Hammer Force, drawn by Mike Dorey, who. So that's the last issue of the planned 5 so far. But before that, we're going to have issue 4 in August, and drawing Cooley's Gun, we have Staz Johnson. So we have people who are brand new and shiny and never done comics before. Is that right, guys? I think so. And then the veteran.
Fairly shiny. Fairly shiny.
Only done a few hundred comics between you. And the veteran, of course, Mike Dorey. So I would go to Mike first, if you guys forgive me. Helmet of Hammer Force, back in action again. How's that feel? Is it exciting?
It's wonderful.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, no. So, yes, it must be interesting to go back to it after all this time.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I did quite a lot of it, and I
Yeah.
knew it so well, so it wasn't difficult. So
Yeah.
it's, I really enjoyed doing it. I've done it for about 30 years, so
30 years.
it was good.
Yeah, and do you feel that you're paying good homage to your earlier self in the earlier comics?
I think so. I have to be a bit more careful now because Garth is writing the scripts, and
It's going to be excellent in that case, because we're all terrified of Garth. Yeah.
he did pull me back. I did a Stuka in it, which I put German markings on it, and it should have been Spanish fascist markings. And luckily, I'd sent in a couple of pages, so he saw the mistake. And I managed, luckily, because of Photoshop, I managed to change it, so it was
Excellent.
okay.
So you're still drawing by hand all the
Yeah,
way?
and I still do it. I like doing by hand, and then I put it into Photoshop and change those. If a head's too big or something's wrong,
Yeah.
Photoshop, you can really
Nice
change
one.
a lot of things. It's
That
really
would have been
good.
easier to have back
Yeah, in the old
day.
days, you had to use process white,
Yeah.
or put a patch on it.
And you
and send it in like that.
properly redrawn. You can't
No.
just grab it and scale it and tweeze it.
No. Photoshop's wonderful. So,
Excellent.
so I
Yeah.
still do it all by hand, and I just scan it all in and then do
So
that.
that means that you have physical pages for sale then, yeah.
I do, yeah. I've got it all.
Nice
yeah.
one. James, you okay? Good man. And okay, so if we go on Staz, how about you? What's it like working on Cooley's Gun? Do you remember Cooley's Gun?
I don't, unfortunately.
Yeah.
My period of reading Battle was like in the real early, sort of when it first came out. I
Yeah.
went from Warlord onto Battle.
Okay.
Well, I went on from every war comic onto Battle because that was my thing.
Yeah.
So I only really read it sort of for a kind of a short period, and then kind of moved on to Action.
Yeah.
And then obviously 2000 AD. So I think Cooley might have come along after I'd sort of stopped reading it, but he's hell of a fun strip to draw.
Yeah. So you went back and read all the older stuff and.
I did, yeah. They sent me a PDF of it, and I read it all again, or for the first time again.
Yeah.
And it's been a fun thing to do. You know, researching all the weaponry and everything.
Yeah.
Because I'm a bit of a nerd for that kind of thing, and I enjoyed it.
We were research nerds. There's not a lot of those in this company here.
No.
And were you asked to do Cooley's Gun, or did you say,
No, I was
give
just
me
asked.
anything? Yeah.
You know, I was asked. I think if they'd said to me, you know, you can draw in the strip you want to do,
Yeah.
I would probably actually gone for Hellman.
Yeah.
But you know, they offered me Cooley's Gun, and I was more than happy to do that. Yeah.
So you got the short straw then?
I did, yeah. Unfortunately.
And are you happy with the script? Yeah.
Yeah, it's shite.
But it's actually written by Garth himself, so I mean,
There you go.
Now
There
you
you go.
mention it. No, it's great. It's battle. It's a story. The best stories contain conflict, don't they?
yeah. Oh yeah.
And you know, World War II is the ultimate conflict. It's good against evil.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can't really go better than that, can't you?
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, the reason the comics and movies and everything keep going back to World War II because it was defining for all of us forever. It's yeah.
Well, I mean, wars before that were sort of imperialistic wars, weren't they? And then after that, they were kind of imperialistic wars. But for that one brief period, it was literally the good guys against the bad guys.
Yeah.
So I think it never gets old. Those kind of stories, and I think that's probably why we keep going back to them.
Yeah.
True. I mean, yeah. There's a lot. Yeah. For most wars, you can switch sides and go, well, actually, from this viewpoint,
Yeah, yeah.
these are the bad guys.
Yeah, but there is no good
But-
point from
yeah.
from the Nazi
Yeah,
side.
they
Oh, there
knew.
was Hellman.
Yeah, but then he's not a Nazi though, is he?
No,
he's
no,
not.
he's not.
That's what I
He's
mean.
anti, yeah.
He fights
I've just-
Nazis as much as
Yeah.
anybody.
Yeah.
I've just drawn a strip which is not for the battle thing, but it's about a squad of German soldiers. And again, they're not Nazis. They're just a bunch of German Wehrmacht soldiers. All they want to do is go home.
Yeah.
And it's the SS stormtroopers that say, no, you've got to go back to the front. And they're fighting the SS stormtroopers. They just want to go home.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, it's still, they're not wearing British uniforms. They're wearing German uniforms, but they're still fighting the Nazis. And I think you only have to look in, the news, don't you? The Nazis, they are the ultimate value.
Oh,
see,
yeah.
see the Proud Boys walking through Washington.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It never goes out of fashion just fighting those sons of
They are
bitches.
Punching a Nazi.
Yeah.
They
Who
make it
doesn't want
easy
to punch
to
a
hate,
Nazi?
to hate them. Yeah. And with you're doing Neil Petrova,
Yeah.
Paddy, and that's because she's on the Russian, so she's
Yeah.
a Russian flyer. So that's interesting because she didn't really have her own starting role until last year's Battle Action Special. She was always a secondary character.
Yeah.
So now
Johnny
you're
Red.
taking her.
Yeah.
Basically, you're giving her the spotlight.
Yeah.
That must be fun.
It is, yeah. It's like I picked up a couple of Johnny Red books just
Yeah.
to sort of delve into the whole world again.
Yeah.
But she was just great to draw.
She finally
and,
gets her wings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she she gets centre stage, and there's just a lot of sort of humanity sort of in the stories anyway. So
Yeah.
both of them I've done. So
Yeah, and of course, she's just a brilliant character anyway.
Yeah.
She should have had her own starting role back in the day, but
yeah,
back it was
she's
a
just
boys'
like
comic.
Yeah, it was,
strong
they wouldn't have stood for
female
a girl,
character
no,
that
yeah.
doesn't need a man to save her.
Yeah.
And that was pretty always good to do. So
Yeah, well, even the early 2000 ADs when they did have female leads, especially the first one, Death's Planet, I think it was, where the female lead character kept getting rescued. I mean, she got rescued more times than she was captured. I don't know how they worked that one out. But it took a long time for that to kind of sink in.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine if there'd been a female-led strip back in battle in 1976, 77, 78. The fans would have gone, no, comics are for boys. They'd say, Tommy is for girls. They were wrong, of course, but that was the way we were, because we were young and stupid. And now, we're old and stupid. So,
yeah, well and truly.
yeah. So, I'll ask the same question I asked the other guys. If you had a choice of battle action characters to work on, what would you go for? I mean, Mike, assuming you couldn't do Helena for some reason, is there any others you'd like to turn to?
I know Darky's Mob.
Darky's well, you're back to them again, yeah.
Yeah, it's really good character, really great stories.
Yeah.
Which even John Wagner wrote, didn't he?
Yes, it is, but it was problematic.
Yeah, it's
Given
really,
its racial
Mike
stereotypes.
Weston's was so great on that.
Yeah,
it's
well, it was.
really inspiring. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
quite like to do that.
Well, I will read Dark Mob again for the art by. The story is tough to take these days. Sensibilities change. What about your Staz? What would you go back to if you could?
Rat Pack? Does anybody remember
Oh,
Rat
yeah.
Pack?
You nicked my
Lord,
answer.
Rabbi.
You nicked my
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that was always.
Yeah,
a
I
great
forgot
strip.
Rat Pack.
Yeah, always Carlos's artwork. Always
Yeah.
a great strip.
That was my favourite back in the days. It was so good. But we all knew it was ripped off from the Dirty Dozen, but they were on the cheap. So
But all the strips were ripped off something, weren't they?
There and it was ripped off so well. It was such a good show.
Yeah.
And of course, the great Jerry Finley Day wrote most of the early ones, so that story, and he was here earlier. So yeah. But and what about yourself, Patrick? What did you go for?
I discovered Battle when it changed to Battle Action Force.
Yeah.
So I was kind of sold in onto the toys,
Okay.
and then I discovered like the Charlie's War, Johnny
Yeah.
Red, Rat Pack, sort of a little bit later. So
Was Major Easy in Battle Action?
Yeah, Major Easy was
yeah,
in
Yeah,
there.
nobody's
yeah,
mentioned him,
Major
have
Easy
they?
would be
No,
pretty
not
good.
yet, no,
Yeah, Rat Pack would have been good. Johnny Red,
Yeah.
he's just I like the world that he's in.
Well, you're kind of there.
I'm there,
Yeah,
so I get to play
yeah.
around with that. So I get to draw Johnny in one or two pictures anyway. So that's pretty cool. But Rat Pack would have been the one, just because they're just an interesting bunch.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
you know-
what you mentioned about the Battle Action Force, because the Action Force were the toy line, so it was
Yeah.
basically the comic was effectively
I like
sponsored.
Vanyo, the artist, or the
Yeah.
artists,
Yeah.
which I never realised.
Oh, was it more
brothers.
than one guy, was it?
Yeah, it's like apparently there was one, and then if it was Vanyo,
Yeah,
it was both of
there
them.
was two of them. Yeah.
Oh,
And
really?
yes, I didn't know until literally 2 years ago.
All right.
But yeah, I love how he's great at drawing jeeps and tech.
Yeah.
And he didn't do many other battle stuff. He was always on the
On
Storm
the Action
Force,
Force
on the
stuff.
Action Force
Yeah.
stuff. So
Yeah, but that
but
was
he
all
a hell of a
the
draftsman.
semi-science fiction kind of
Yeah, he was a great draftsman.
high espionage kind of thing. I mean, that was after
they
my
were.
time. I didn't read any
Yeah.
of that.
Oh,
But I mean, obviously you're that bit younger. That was your gateway
Yeah.
into battle as we see it now. I mean, we still think the comic as battle or battle action and not Battle Picture Weekly, which is how I remember it. But it's strange because I've a couple of younger friends than me, and they loved Stormforce. And I'm looking at them going, no, you didn't. You're wrong. And, no, of course.
I know somebody who wants to bring that back. He's desperate to get hold of the IP, and I don't remember much about it because I think I stopped when that was sort of getting phased in. But he's desperate to do it.
It's all a valid part of the history, but we can't just narrow battle down to just to one aspect. But if I was involved, I would like to bring back some of the action stuff that didn't really last. Death Game 1999 and all that, which was just mad as a bag of hammers. That's the sort of stuff I would like to do because everybody else does the war stuff so well. I wouldn't do it that well. But,
No?
Yeah. So do you have any audience questions or no? Where's PJ when you need him?
Come along.
How are we doing for time, Stephen?
8 minutes.
Oh, lovely stuff.
Well, it's like Mike's one's in black and white, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is
Yeah.
yours
Is
in
it?
colour?
Yeah,
I think it's in
Mine's
colour.
getting coloured.
yeah,
but
I
it's
didn't
like-
need colour on mine.
I know. I need.
Well, that's the quote of the night so far. Well done.
I have to set you
I
up.
didn't need to pull it around.
Well, that's a key thing because the new battle action has to sell not just in the UK and in Ireland. It has to sell in the States. Oh, well, not it has to, but it would be nice if it does, if it gets picked up there. And they're really in the mainstream. They're just not used to non-color comics. They're used. They love for the four colours.
Oh well, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
well, I've got half tone on mine, so it's not pure black and white.
But it's easy. It's easier. It was easier back in the days of action and battle to get away with an awful lot of gore and blood because it was all black ink anyway.
Yeah.
But you couldn't get away with that now. It's
Yeah,
just,
well, I worked on action with Pat Mills, and the thing was, he wanted more blood, more gore, whatever it was, he wanted more of it.
Yeah.
So it's what's a hook jaw, isn't it?
Yeah.
All chewed up. And in the helmet, and people getting blown apart and stuff.
It was amazing with Hookjaw that it came out just the same time that Jaws did.
Yeah, it
What
did.
What a
the
coincidence.
odds? It was
Yeah.
incredible that it just happened like that. But so if we may diversify a little and digress, so do you remember the Ferrari when action was effectively banned?
Yeah, there was one episode
Yeah.
was banned, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they went away for several weeks and then came back kind of tamed, motorised, white-outed.
Yeah.
White-outed, yes, white-outed,
White
that's
Outfit.
real. Yes.
The thing with the story I did was Hellman,
Yeah.
and it was really successful. So DC Thompson's wanted a copy, and I did a thing called Iron Annie and other things for them. And a lot of people that had been in the Second World War, they were really anti him, a German hero.
Yeah.
But because Hellman was pretty successful, they wanted to copy it. So I did Iron Annie and Camp Brooker Falcon and stuff like that. And,
Wow, yeah.
all copies of Hellman. So.
But Hellman works because, as a reader, it worked for me because we saw so many stories that were just from the viewpoint of the Allies, and then to see basically a good guy in a really bad situation, it was not usual for kids' comics. It was fantastic. Heroes were always black and white, if you forget the expression there. They were monochrome, and now we got this guy, and we went, well, I know he's the bad guy, but he's still a good guy. So
What was the story about? Was it the Major dies at dawn or something like that? It was it was like a German officer.
Yeah.
I think it was in one of the collected ones I read.
that's it.
And
That's
the
the
general
general
dies at
that's
dawn.
the
Yeah.
one.
And I remember that. And,
Yeah.
But it wasn't often you saw like a German hero.
The thing with the Germans, the uniforms are a lot better than the Allies.
Yeah.
And the German tanks are a lot easier to draw. You had to draw Matildas.
Yeah.
Was it you?
No, I don't know.
Or was it PJ?
Yeah, I think
Oh,
PJ
not me
did
then.
some of those.
They're buggers to draw those things. The German tanks are on nice smooth surfaces, so they're much easier to draw.
That Mark IV's a bugger though. That Mark IV.
Yeah, that's what they were. The Panther and the King Tiger, and even the Tiger's quite easy. But
Yeah.
the Mark IV and Mark III is not easy.
No.
But they're not as bad as bloody British tanks. Like Churchill and the Matilda.
Yeah.
They're
The
buggers.
World
to draw.
War One Mark IVs were tough.
Oh yeah, I've done them in cabin. Yeah, I did those.
I even counted the rivets on the one, just to get it right.
There are a lot of rivets on that tank.
Yeah.
But it could be argued, of course I don't think it could be argued, but it could be argued that one of the reasons, and maybe one of the primary reasons that Battle was so resonant in its time and today, was because it had characters like Helmut who broke the mould of having the standard stiff upper lip British hero and all these characters called Ginger and Alfie who rescued each other just at the last second. The characters died, and sometimes it was pretty horrible. I mean, we saw that particularly in Charlie's War, which was another shift from Battle that I'm sure we'll revive one day. But it was of the time. It was incredible. It was groundbreaking. And then, of course, obviously Battle led to action led to 2000 AD, and hey, I get a job. But it was far better.
But the thing is, like Cooley, the strip that I've drawn. Cooley, the character, is a horrible person, but he's like fighting on the good side.
Yeah.
So he's
He would like be the villain in most stories.
Yeah, in most stories he would be the bad guy.
Yeah.
But in that particular instance, the Allies need a right horrible shite to be on your side. And he's the guy that's there.
See, comics never had that before. No, it's not really. Warlord tried it a little bit with some of their slightly tougher characters, but they were still tame compared to what happened in Battle. The Battle was gritty. I mean,
I remember Jerry Finney-Day wrote the Hellmans originally, and they were fighting the British, and so they never killed any British soldiers. He's always hitting them and not killing them, and trying not to kill them. And he must have had a real devil of a job trying to scripts for that, not killing anyone. But as soon as Hellman went to the Russian front, it was okay. You can go kill them all. Kill them all.
Yeah, it was fair game then. Yeah. Okay, so I think, are we okay for time?
3 minutes.
Sorry?
3 minutes.
Oh, that's great. 3 minutes. Okay.
Oh, waffling.
Yeah. No. Waffle all you want. This is the best speech.
Paddy's got a lot more to say, I think.
Yeah, too young.
So, characters from other comics that you might like to revive from the past. I mean, they haven't.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the Death Game 1999.
Yeah.
That was why I started buying Action.
Yeah.
Because I was Rollerboard coming out, obviously,
that's
and
good
I was too young to see it. But I'd seen a clip of it on World of Sport. They used to have this thing where it was like sport in the movies, and they showed this like 30-second clip of Rollerball.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that looks fantastic.
That's the same
And then the strip comes out in Action, and so I just started buying it.
Yeah.
And I mean, so I'd love to draw that. I mean, the idea of game with a big steel ball on skates and slicing each other up with ice skates.
Yeah.
I mean,
It made no sense, but it was awesome.
Yeah, and he's played on a giant pinball, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
I mean, what's not to love about that?
I don't know, why haven't we played spinball for real? I mean, come on, lads.
Yeah. And they've got
One
motorbikes.
step ahead.
Yeah, so what about yourself, Paddy? Is there anybody you like from the revive from the olden days? Someone who's never come back? Yeah.
I don't know. I'd just rather work on newer stuff, like something create something different, and then there's plenty of stories. The world's there that you can go back in history to do it.
Yeah.
But I don't have the
You
knowledge.
don't want to bring back like King Cobra from the Hornet or anything like that. I'd love to do that one. Yeah. With you, that's not IPC, so maybe we edit that bit out of the video. But and what about yourself, Mike? Is anybody you want to?
Well, I did say Darky's Mob.
Darky's Mob. Anybody beyond Battle though?
Beyond Battle.
That's what
I did. For DC Thompson's, I did over 1,000 pages of Cadman.
Oh,
and he was based on Flashman.
Yeah, okay.
And I like doing that.
So it'd be nice to see those things reprinted again.
Yeah, I've done a few people want to ask me to do some sketches for Cadman, but it's good character, just like Flashman, so it's good.
Yeah. Every comic seemed to be based on someone else's
thing.
But that's okay. That's how we love this.
Because Hellman I based on, you remember the Battle of the Bulge?
Yes.
And Robert Shaw.
Yeah.
And that's what I drew him to look like Robert Shaw in that.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
And I got my wife when I was going to redo it to look up Battle of the Bulge from the film, and she went online and there's all these gay blokes in speedos.
Oh.
Okay. Battle of the Bulge.
Oh, the internet.
Delete history.
Fickle thing. I don't remember that from Battle, but yeah.
Yeah, she's a bit surprised.
Well, guys, listen, thank you very much. We have Rob, Staz, and Mike, and you've been awesome. Thanks very much.
Yep.
Round of applause. It's kind of a bit.
It's not the first time.
Yes, welcome everybody to part 3 of our launch of the new battle action here at the Enniskillen Comic Fest. I'm legally obligated to say that, otherwise I don't get paid. Oh wait, I don't get paid anyway. Yeah. So,
Same.
for this final panel, which is not the best one, because otherwise the other guys would hate us for this.
2 writers.
Yeah, we had 2 writers. Yeah, last time we had 3 artists. This time we had 2 writers and 1 artist.
Yeah.
Keith, you're going to have to
Sandwich
fight
in the middle.
extra hard here. So we have Garth Ennis at the end here, who's basically in charge.
Thank you.
You all know what Garth has done. We don't need to go over that ground now. Keith Burns is. Not only did he do the art on the Johnny Red in issue 1, which is just out now, he also did the fantastic cover in issue 1, and it's a stunning piece of work. Well done.
Thanks very much.
Yay. And I don't know, Rob Williams. Rob Williams, who is my bitter rival, who I dearly love, has done 2 stories in upcoming issues. In issue 3, Major Easy, with art by Henry Flint, and in issue 4, Death Squad, with art by PJ Holden. Yeah. We don't know who he is. So, I am going to turn to Rob first because he's nearest. How much fun has this been? Have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, a huge amount of fun. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just you get 12 pages, and you just get to tell a story, and you go. I mean, I read I had Battle as a kid, so that's fun. Getting to work with Henry and he's always amazing. Getting to work with PJ is always PJ.
And you have our sympathies. There is a support group we meet on Wednesdays.
No, PJ did a great job on Death Squad. I mean, no, it's a hoot basically, and then getting to work with friends as well is. All of it is, and then the strips come back and the artwork's fantastic, and I genuinely like. I'm very interested in the era. I love, I read a lot of books on World War II, so it's a bit of a dream job, to be honest.
Excellent. And what about yourself then, Keith? You are at the sharp end because people see the art before they read the story. How much fun is that when they go, oh, hang on, there's too few rivets on this.
Yeah. No, but I've spent years going to air shows doing artwork. So when you go into that environment where you're surrounded by people that like to come in and find something wrong with everything you've done and say there's too many rivets on that plane or the guns are all wrong and blah blah blah, you're well used to it. So, but in that scenario, I haven't got any backup. I'm doing the painting and sending out. But in this scenario, I've got him as a filter.
Yeah,
so he catches any error before it goes out, but hopefully there's not usually too many.
But did you have much of a? I mean, obviously you're obviously way younger than I am. Did you have much of an interest in battle when you were growing up, or was it even still around? When
No, I wasn't around. No.
Ah?
So I grew up. We were talking about this last night. The first comic I read properly and was obsessed with was Starcom, which was a kind
Which you invented last night.
He thought I'd invented it. He said this doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And we spent about 10 minutes on the internet trying to find. But Gary Leach was actually the person who did the artwork for it.
No way. I have never even heard of this one.
Yeah, no,
There you
it
go.
was these kind of motorised toys that kind of you'd put it into something, and as it came out, it would go, and then it was like it transformed. But of course, there was a whole comic to back it up.
Of course.
But then, and I never realised that Gary had done the artwork, and then it was only recently I found out.
Wow.
And it was 3D, so you had the comic.
Yeah.
All the artwork was printed in 3D, so it didn't make any sense until you put a pair of glasses
on. Yeah.
So as a kid, I was putting my finger behind the ships and thinking I could climb into them. It was brilliant. And then obviously later I went on to, I came across a few issues of Commando and stuff, and then went on to 2000 AD when I got a bit older.
And then,
so it's only actually through all the reprints and stuff that I got back into it.
So, because none of us, or very few of us, were actually around during World War II. I mean, I certainly don't recall it very well. But so we're kind of doing the same thing looking back. But we do remember Battle. But I mean, Garth, you're quite a bit younger than me too. You must have been a toddler when Battle came out.
Well, let's see.
I'm 57, so I was born in 66.
Okay, so I was born in 70.
Yeah.
So I started reading Battle when it was Battle Action in 78.
Yeah, so
Because 2000 AD was my first comic, and then I went on to Battle Action. And in those days, where I grew up anyway, and I think in a lot of the UK and probably Ireland, we still knew about World War II. We knew the names of the battles, the major participants. we perhaps knew a few people. We saw them when we were walking through the town. Someone might say, he was at Arnhem, he was in the RAF. I mean, I know my parents, who were both in the civil service, worked alongside a lot of RAF aircrew who were either bored out of their minds or drunks or both, because how could you ever equal that?
Yeah.
So it still loomed large in the popular imagination, I think, and you only have to look at not just the comics, but the movies and the novels and generally the fiction of the era to see why it held us in its grip the way it did.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously, as we mentioned earlier on one of the panels, it was a profound time. It was very clear who the bad guys were in that case, as far as we could see.
Yeah, I mean, I would qualify that slightly. I mean, as has been pointed out, I would say that the victory of the Allied powers saved us from something far worse, but it didn't create a utopia or anything like it, and we'll have to accept that. You also have to consider that when people are face to face in combat, they're going to do dreadful things to each other that have nothing to do with what we like to think of as the morality that guides us in everyday life.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yes, it's better that it turned out the way it did than the other.
The alternative was
Yeah.
That's true. We have of course a huge array of movies, books, comics, of course, about World War II. Is there a danger of over-egging that pudding, of returning to that too often, that kind of thing? I mean, are there still enough exciting stories to be told?
Yeah, I think so, because if you read any history books of the era, you read page after page after page of the most ludicrous heroism and stupidity and all the human drama that makes amazing stories, which is far greater than probably any of us can actually put in whatever stories we come up with. So I think that's why it's most fertile, because what it does in its in the horrific nature of those circumstances pushes people to extremes, and they can be the most amazing extremes of your bravery, or they can be the most horrible extremes of cruelty, which is just complete fertile goo for like stories, basically. So no, I mean basically that's why we keep coming back to that well over and over again, probably.
But certainly it seems to be way more revisited than any other major conflict. But that's probably partly because it is so well documented at the time, physically documented. Whereas World War I, we didn't quite have the recording media, as it were. So World War II, we can see what it was like to some degree. And we can see the horrors, but also we can see the heroes, the people, the actual lives that were touched and some ended in that time. So then we have further wars, obviously, because there has been, apparently it wasn't the war to end all wars after all. Who knew? But there seems to be a certain glamour to the Second World War, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, because there was the heroism aspect and there was the strength, the feeling that they had no choice but to fight. Further wars, when you read about people who were in Vietnam or Korea or Iraq or anywhere, there's not that.
No, I think you have to. First of all, we should say that if we're talking about battle action, it's a couple of steps further into the realm of hyperbole than many more straight fictional stories about the Second World War tend to be, because it was a boys' comic of the 1970s and 80s. Personally, I feel that, and this goes back to what we were saying earlier, I think we keep going back to the Second World War because we have a desire to learn lessons about war that suit us, whereas the lessons that come from all the other wars don't. They're all such messy quagmire type conflicts. Look at the last two we just got out of. Look at the ones we're probably about to get into. Look at the ones that dominated the second half of the 20th century. Now compare those with the Second World War. It's clear cut, definite start, definite finish. The lines are clearly drawn. We talked about that. Even when you get to the end, the evil madman blows his own brains out in his secret underground fortress, and later on, a new super weapon takes out the last vestiges of the fascist side. And you look at it, and also, of course, 80 million people have just died. Like, the world's population has just been chopped by that many people, and you can't help but look at a cataclysmic conflict like that and think, well, this must mean something, mustn't it?
Yeah.
And so we desire to learn so many lessons from something that seems so clear. We've strayed very far from battle action.
We have
here.
indeed, but we can bring it back. I'm very good
But
at that.
we can't veer back to it. But in terms of why we're drawn to the Second World War, well, that I think is why.
Yeah, I couldn't have put it better myself, but I will when I steal all your words later on. It is a universe, well, for the human race, a universe-defining thing. That is a key moment. But when it comes to comics, the war comics kind of died then in the 70s. Battle was kind of. Was it that Battle was so good they couldn't do any more war comics because there was no way you could go near it, or was it just in the interest eroded by Star Wars and fantasy fiction, fantasy wars rather than real wars?
I think so. I just don't think they could continue to make it interesting.
Yeah.
You saw it in Battle. You veer into stuff like Truck Turpin and the thing about the helicopter chopper blade. Thing. That's it.
Thank you.
And then you get into the Action Force stuff,
Yeah.
and it's like obviously it won't sail on its own because the generation we've talked about who are so wrapped up in the Second World War, well, they age out of comics, and the new generation isn't interested.
Yeah. And yet here we are
And yet here we are.
in the year 2023, I'm gonna say, and we're still, but most of us here, I'm sure, are still fans of Battle of some era, if not all of it. And I mean, the comic, not battles in general, and we bloody love it. And the new comics are great, by the way. Well done, everybody. But they're grown up, though. I mean, do you find the comics? There are strong language words, and there are nudie naked bits in some of the parts, and there are adult themes that we didn't really see back in the day. Is that?
Or did we?
Well, we didn't see them. Doesn't mean they weren't there.
Yeah, I
maybe.
mean, Charlie's War, Nightshade, Darky's Mob, they were in there. They were just disguised.
But maybe it's because we were 10 and not because they weren't there. But yeah, that's true. But we have things like we have stronger language because we have a different audience now. Does that change the way you draw and way to present these things?
No, I was saying earlier, actually, I was chatting with Dan Cornwell there. I think most of the time I can't speak for anyone else, but you write for yourself, really, and the stories that you want to read. So you're not thinking too hard about the audience, really. Other people might differ on that. You just kind of go, I think this would be fun.
Yeah.
We can summation this down to, I think this would be fun.
Yeah,
and then you kind of go with that, for good or ill. But it's like, from Major Easy's point of view, you've got kind of, you can paint the realism and then some, British sort of super cool major turns up in a Bentley in a war zone in North Africa and mows down a bunch of Nazis in my story, and you kind of go, yeah, that's kind of fun.
Yeah, because ultimately, the job of comic is to sell a story, to entertain the readers, and you have to have some nod towards truth, verisimilitude, that kind of thing. But you can't go too anal on it. You can't go say, well, we can't possibly have a story like Major Easy because he would not have been allowed to do that. Because if he wasn't allowed to do that, we wouldn't be any fun.
Yeah, and the Death Squad are called Death Squad. I mean, it's like, we are not going for high realism here necessarily.
It's not tremendously so, but then it shouldn't be, because it should be fun. So.
Yeah, it's got to be readable. It's got to be. I mean, it's entertainment. We're not selling people on a kind of like a turgid sort of documentary. We want to actually keep a bit. It's got to be a fun comic. Exactly. You keep turning the page.
And if it's fun to write and draw, hopefully it'll be fun to read as well. But yeah.
One hopes.
Yes,
I think you can pick up clues in the original stuff. I mean, especially when people like Pat Mills and John Wagner are involved. But if I read the old Johnny Red strip, for instance, written by Tom Tully, I get the impression that Tully intended us to understand that Johnny enjoyed what he did.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, if you read much about World War II aviation, most of the great aces actually did enjoy shooting down other planes. Some of them treated it like a game, and some of them admitted it what it was, which was murder. But Johnny does seem to be into it.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be good at something, you have to kind of be into it. And I pick up on those clues, and I write about a guy who is never more alive than when he's behind the controls and the guns of his plane.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, that makes him a much more interesting character than someone who's just following his orders and so on. Yeah. But but Johnny Red's always been that great ambiguous character because of the way he's fighting, because he's effectively flying from the other direction, as it were, physically sometimes. He's fighting for the Russians, but he's a British guy doing his best at it. But yeah, he's a brilliant character. Is that one of the reasons you always come back to Johnny Red?
I think so.
You like him most? Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I remember the first time I read it, and I saw Colquhoun drawing the Falcons in their mixture of aircraft with some British and some Russian markings, but all of them united by that falcon under the cockpit. And I remember being fascinated by that. The art didn't hurt.
Yeah, it's fantastic art.
Stunning.
Yeah.
And I suppose I pick up on that. I mean, that's something that helps you find a way in, I think. Being able to draw the aviation stuff, because making aeroplanes come alive seems to me to be something that you kind of live for.
Yeah, well, that's why I really enjoy it, trying to kind of capture the kind of kinetics of flight and the physical energies involved in that.
You're turning an inanimate static object into a character. By representing movement, and it's a
well, it's to go too arty on it and too nat, but when you're doing life drawing, you're trying to kind of capture a gesture of how the person's standing, and that works the same with when you're trying to draw the line of how an aircraft's moving and how all the actions moving two aircrafts moving together. There's a gesture that moves through the whole thing that then makes it interesting to look at and makes it dynamic. So it's really fascinating. It's just really fascinating to try and figure out just the logistics of that.
So when you're doing that, then Keith, do you go back to the old comics to try and, I'm not going to say mimic what they do, but at least to give a sense of continuity with the other artists when someone like John Cooper did Johnny Red a fair bit, didn't he? And Cam did it. Cam Kennedy.
No, it was Colquhoun, Cooper, Carlos Pino.
Carlos Pino. Yeah. So they did. So you want to put your own take on it.
I know, but I looked at that and then it scared the shit out of me. Because I looked at it, I was like, holy crap! Why such they went like that? So I just had to look at it, try and get what I could from it, but then I just had to do what I could do because you're only capable of what you can do yourself.
Yeah.
But that's why I think like these two pairing up is just like a perfect match, because Garth loves writing that stuff and he loves drawing that stuff at its most basic level. And like there's a respect for the the realism of what came before, but also it's just like it looks very dynamic on the page, which is like perfect.
Well, I've only read the first two stories but issue 1. I haven't read any of the others, but we have HMS Nightshade, which is a very somber story. It's a brilliant piece of work. And then we have Johnny Red, which is just pure gold. It's funny, it's entertaining, but it doesn't have a tremendously serious element. Well, it does have one element of it. I don't want to spoil it, but there's also pure moments of genuine comedy in there. Well, so it must be fun to be able to do that.
That wasn't lost on me when I read John's Nightshade script, and I thought, okay, this is about the seriousness, the solemnity, and the horrors of war. And I write a story about a guy who really does like what he did. He loves getting stuck in, and he loves sort of outwitting the enemy. It's funny, Keith is a member of the Guild of Aviation Artists. And his work is seen among those people who, you see them on the walls of pubs, of offices. And I mean, the great cliche of aviation art is an aeroplane drawn beautifully against a searing, gorgeous sunset. Well, I thought it would be fun to have a guy use the sunset to kill somebody, to come weaving out of it and blast someone all over the interior of their plane. Bloody carnage as the thing cartwheels into a lake. And to me, like, that's Johnny. Johnny's just thinking about, like, how can I make a mess of the other guy to stop him hurting my friends? And again, it goes back to the idea of like, let's enjoy what we're doing. But the contrast with the Nightshade story could not be stronger. And yet I feel that if you like British comics of the era, the whole idea of everything having to have the same tone, the same approach.
30 seconds.
Right, it's very quickly. It's anathema. The whole idea is to have as many different approaches in one
mix and
comic
match.
as you possibly can, and if that isn't the strength of 2000 AD action and battle,
Yeah.
I don't know what is.
I totally agree. It's that old something for everybody thing. Obviously, you've only got 2 stories per issue, but it's still an anthology. And okay, we're have to wrap up real quick, but I want to say that I think it's tremendously successful. I think it's gorgeous. If the next 4 issues are anywhere as good as the first one, you have a total winner. Are we allowed to talk about what's next, or have we run out of time? Oh, that was well done.
Well, for your information, what's next is we want to do more.
Yeah. Well done, guys.